Messy hair, I don't care. It's Plat'n that time. Let's jump right in. Alrighty, so today we have Kenneth McCormick's account, who has another heavyweight account. We've been absolutely nailing it this season of Plat'n that, and we have another fantastic one here with 234 games played for a massive 216 games completed at a 98.14% completion rate, which is incredible. That averages to about 2.1 trophies per day. And let's roll into the list, shall we? I'm looking forward to it. I sort of skimmed through earlier, saw some Assassin's Creed, so you know it's already ticking some boxes for me. But we have a Plague Tale to kick off the list. No Requiem, I think it is, the sequel, but you did smash this one out in 15 hours. This is a game that we typically do see quite a bit on this series, which is nice because it is a fantastic game and one I would like to do myself again soon. A Way Out is another staple. In fact, I'd say the first three games here are staples on this series, with Abzu here as well, which I think just left Plus, unfortunately, because it is a fantastic walking simi-esque game. Oh my god, I just looked in the camera and saw my hair. That is atrocious. I promise I will get a brush at some point between episodes. We then have Alien Isolation, a game I absolutely adore. I think this game is genuinely fantastic. And rolling into Halloween and stuff in October and the spooky season. Do expect some content relating to Alien Isolation on the channel around that time. We then have Alpha Protocol, so it's nice to see a bit of love for the PS3 here. Alpha Protocol is the spy RPG from memory. I think that's the correct one. I remember it being kind of underrated, but also just kind of decent. I think this is made by Obsidian, if I'm not mistaken, from memory. But it is a very good game if it is the one that I am thinking of. We then roll into something that is absolutely beautiful. Have a look at these Assassin's Creeds. We've even got the Chronicles here. Let me work out if you do have them all. I think you might, which is very, very nice to see. But we've got Brotherhood. We have India, China, and Russia, which of course the side-scrolling platformer spin-off games of sorts, I guess you would call them. We then have Freedom Cries Standalone, which is really nice to see. Assassin's Creed 2, 3, 4 Black Flag, Liberation, Mirage, which is obviously the newest one, Odyssey, Origins, Revelations, Rogue, Syndicate, Unity, and Valhalla. That is all of them. You've done it. Kenneth, that is a fantastic achievement. You know I love to see my Assassin's Creeds. Seeing them all here makes me very, very happy. It's also interesting to note, and I'll just double check it real quick. Yeah, you don't have any stacks here, which is interesting. I assume, Kenneth, I assume you don't do stacks potentially, or maybe Assassin's Creed's are sort of a one and done for you. But that is a fantastic series completion right there. Back-to-back Assassin's Creed full completions with Assassins last week and Kenneth's this week. That is fantastic to see. I love that Plat'n that Season 3 has started so strong. These have all been heavyweight accounts, which is absolutely fantastic. We then move into Baldur's Gate, which are, of course, very famous and fantastic games on the PC from like the late 90s, early 2000s. And then obviously 3 came out last year to much acclaim. You have finished 1, you have finished 3, and it looks like you've sort of gotten into 2, but you're not too far into it. I assume this is one that is on the back burner for you, given that the last trophy earned for this was in March. But these are fantastic games that are obviously absolutely massive. I mean, just look at the tags here. 120 hours for Baldur's Gate 3, 90 hours for 2, and 40 hours for 1, which is scary. We then have also Baldur's Gate Siege of Dragonspear, which I didn't even know existed. I think this is a DLC expansion, is it not? For the originals. If I am wrong, do let me know in the comments, of course. We then have the Batman games here with the Arkham series. We've got Asylum's 100%, Arkham Knight nearly at 100%. I assume that's probably things like the get a million points in the free flow challenges and stuff still left for you. And then obviously Arkham City's combat challenges are still left here to do as well, which are very, very nasty trophies. So I definitely don't blame you putting them on the back burner. I know my good friend Pete from Missing Collectible is currently going for these, and I know that they are absolutely brutal. So I do wish you luck if you do decide you want to go back for these at some point. We then have Beyond Blue, which I've never actually heard of, to be perfectly honest with you. You did smash it out in 4.5 hours, which is super cool to see here. We then have Beyond Good and Evil HD, which is obviously a port of a PS2 game from way back in the day. Beyond Two Souls. This is an interesting one to see here, actually. Black Sad Under the Skin. I think that completion rate's actually risen quite a bit since I saw this last. This is a game that I was semi-interested in at one point, but I know is incredibly buggy. I know the trophies don't pop when they're supposed to, and a bit of a nightmare. So it is cool to see that you do have these complete. Congratulations there, Kenneth. That's one that is interesting to me. It's also very interesting that that is now no longer an ultra rare, because I believe it was an ultra rare the last time I saw it. It might have even been like a sub 1% or something, unless there is another Black Sad game, but I don't think there is. We then have Blade Runner, which is another one I didn't actually know existed. I assume this is a tie-in to, I assume the Ryan Gosling Blade Runner and not the Harrison Ford one. But yeah, I didn't know that this IP actually had a video game in it. That's kind of cool. Is it sort of similar to the Terminator games or the RoboCop one that came out last year? Do let me know. We then have Blood Bowl 2 and Blood Bowl 3. Blood Bowl 2 being a very good turn-based sort of sports game, I guess. It's sort of based on American football. I was expecting it to kind of be very similar to XCOM. I wasn't able to really get into these games too well. I did only really try Blood Bowl 3, which I've heard nothing but bad things about, really, in all honesty, and I just wasn't massively keen on that one myself. But it is cool to see that you do have the trophies in both of these. I don't think the first game does have trophy support, or is it on PlayStation in general, to be honest with you. We then have Bloodborne's 100%, followed by 2 Borderlands here with 1 and 2, both 100%, which is cool to see. I do like that I can see that you clearly probably 100% of Borderlands 2 years ago, and then when they released the new DLC, you went back and cleaned that up. Actually, no, I'm incorrect, because you've got the PS3 version here, which I don't think got that DLC. I think just the PS4 version got the DLC that released like 10 years after the game came out in anticipation for Borderlands 3. We then have Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. This game hurt my brain when I played it, but it is a very good one. The control scheme is just an absolute nightmare to get your head around. We then have Bully here, followed by Burly Men at Sea, Claire, Code Vein, and Conan Exiles 100%. Contrast and Counter Spy, I always love to see the 100%, and a bit of love for those when there is no Platinum available. So it is cool to see those getting some love with these two, and also Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. We've got our first stack of the list, so I think I've answered my own question from before with the Assassin's Creeds. You've got Cyberpunk here twice. A neat thing about Cyberpunk is obviously the Phantom Liberty DLC trophy list, and just the DLC in general is only available on the PS5. It's not available on the PS4 at all. We then have Darkwood, which is a elite level horror game. This is a fantastic game. This is another one to expect content on the channel with at some point, because I adore this game and I have a lot to say about this game. Darkwood is a game that does horror correct. It does horror well. It understands it. Absolutely fantastic game. I am glad, Kenneth, that you've given this one a try. That is fantastic to see right here. We then have Day of the Tentacle, followed by another stack here of Dead Nation. You've smashed out all of the trophies here. What is interesting, so I assume Dead Nation on the PS4 must be a remaster or relaunch of the original, because the DLC trophies for the original are now just on the base list, which is interesting to see there. We then have the Deadpool game, which I've been seeing quite a lot of buzz about in anticipation for the Deadpool movie that's coming out. I think this game's also delisted. I think you have to get a physical version of this to be able to platinum this these days, I think. We then have Desperados, which is a fantastic game. This is another one that's worth trying out at some point. I think it might also be on PS Plus at the moment. If it's not, it's what's the ninja one? It's the same developers have another series as well that's set in Japan. But these are very, very good games. We might even see that other series later in the list, which will hopefully remind me of the name. We then have Detroit Become Boring, followed by Deus Ex Mankind Divided, which is another weird one that we've been seeing quite a bit on the on Plat'n lately, which is quite interesting. Disc Jam is one of the first games to get trophies from memory. It is unobtainable now with one of the trophies, but you were able to smash that out, which is very good to see. Disco Elysium is next, which is a very mixed game for me. I love a lot of what Disco Elysium does, but I hated the ending to the story. I thought the ending was super anticlimactic, not really well built up on, and just underwhelming. Wasn't a big fan of it, and it wasn't enough for me to go back and do the second playthrough. But I can see that you smashed out in a week, which is a lot of dialogue that you must have read in that time. Congratulations. We then have the base game of Dishonored. You didn't do the DLC. I don't necessarily blame you. I still need to do the DLC myself at some point for Project Platinum. We'll see when I get round to that. Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 is next. You smash these out. These are two more beefy RPGs. We've had a few RPGs so far, which is interesting to see. I do like the representation there of the genre. You smash both of these out. I didn't actually know that the first game was a 9 out of 10 difficulty either. If someone does know in the comments, let me know why the first Divinity Original Sin is actually a 9 out of 10 difficulty, because that is interesting to see there. We then have some Dragon Age here with all three games at 100%, which, I love to see that. I still think Origins is the best of the trilogy. I think Inquisition gets a little too much hate. It is actually a fairly reasonable RPG, I would say. I don't think it's anything particularly special, but it certainly doesn't do anything bad. And then Dragon Age 2 just exists. It's okay. It's not that bad. We then have Endling Extinction is Forever. You did this this year. This is another fantastic little game where you play as a fox who's looking for her cubs, or cubs specifically. It's got an interesting trophy list, and a lot of it's tied to stuff that you can only do on specific days. But if you do follow a guide, you can smash it out in I assume 2 hours, as little as 2 hours. Everyone's Gone to the Rapture is a walking sim game that's very, very good. This is another one I'd like to do at some point again myself. We then have all of the Fallouts except Fallout 76 at 100%. So I am curious, Kenneth, is Fallout 76 a game you plan on doing at some point? But we do have the 100% for 3, 4, Shelter, and New Vegas. We then have another rare incomplete game here with Fantasy General 2, which is an ultra rare normally, followed by only one Far Cry in Far Cry 4. Probably my favorite of the Far Cries. I do like that this game got fixed so that it is now obtainable, which is very nice. I definitely plan to go back and do that again myself at some point. We then have For Honor, which is a very unique game. I don't think we've seen this on Plat'n too often. For Honor is a fantastic sort of third-person melee battling sort of game, I guess, where two teams are attacking or defending some points amongst the sort of scene of a grand battle, which is a really cool setting with some really cool movesets and stuff. I do like For Honor quite a bit, and I do like that you did smash out the full 100%. We then have a fantastic game that is very, very difficult in Frostpunk here. You've got most of the trophies. I assume a lot of what's left for you is DLC related, but some of the endless mode trophies are very, very difficult to achieve, so it is cool to see that you are only missing 20 here. Frostpunk is kind of a economics and city builder, I would say, that is set in a sort of ice age, I guess you would call it, where every move you make really, really affects the survival of everyone in your colony. We then have Telltale's Game of Thrones, followed by Gone Home, which you smashed out in an hour. Fantastic little walking sim, actually. That's another one I'd like to do soon again, I think. There's a video I've been tempted to do that's something like, 10 games without platinums you must play, or something like that. And if I do make that video, I assume Gone Home will probably make that list. Do let me know if you would like some more other trophy content besides Project Platinum and Plat'n, like the top 10s and stuff. Do let me know if you would like to see those make a return at some point. We then have the Grand Theft Autos here with 3, 4, 5, 5 at 100% on the PS3, which is really cool to see. The PS4 is only missing the Doomsday Heist. I don't even need to open the list to know that's exactly what's missing here. 76 of 78 trophies. We then have San Andreas and Vice City. I love to see all of these here. I especially like that the Grand Theft Autos are the original ports and not the definitive edition. But either way, that is a fantastic achievement and series completion there. Kenneth, congratulations. Greedfall is next. This is a game developed by a company called Spiders, who I have a very fond love-hate relationship with. I was finally able to get the Platinum 4 Greedfall earlier this year after having a glitch on me for years and years and years. I was finally able to go back and knock that one off my own list. It's a very interesting RPG in that it does absolutely nothing special, but it has such a unique setting, and you can tell the developers actually really loved the game and wanted to put effort and thought and care into it. So it's one I would ultimately recommend, but it is one I would also heavily recommend you use a guide for. We then have Grim Fandango, followed by Hateo for Boyfriend, which is the pigeon dating simulator game. Heavy Rain twice, which is far too much Heavy Rain for my liking. That is so many endings you've had to go through and complete there. Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. This is a game I honestly was not a big fan of. I certainly don't think much of this game at all, to be honest with you. The puzzles are all incredibly easy and kind of just over the top in their frequency. And the combat it exists. That's probably the nicest thing I can say there. Her Majesty's Spiffing is a very funny sort of just comedy game where you play as 2 astronauts, I believe trying to colonize space for the Queen. It's short, it's easy, but it is worth a play. This is a very good one right here. Hitman Absolution is next. It's the only Hitman game on the list. The full 100% is nice to see because some of the contract stuff is now unobtainable due to server closure. And we round out the H's with Horizon Zero Dawn. No West, but you did 100% Zero Dawn, which means you did have to do things like the New Game Plus and the Frozen Wilds DLC, which is nice to see. We then have Infamous, followed by Infamous First Light. No Second Son, however. Injustice God Amongst Us, which you've got most of the way through, just a couple trophies left to grind out. I assume they are probably some of the more grindy trophies on that list. Invisible Ink is a super impressive one to see here. I love to see this at a whopping 0.43% completion rate. That is enormous. Very difficult game, kind of like XCOM, I guess you would say. You actually smashed this out reasonably quickly in a year and 3 months, but congratulations, Kenneth. That is a fantastic one to see right there. We then have Journey, followed by Killer is Dead, followed by a double stack of LA Noire. This is another game to expect to see content on the channel on at some point, hopefully very soon. I adore LA Noire. I miss this series. Well, I guess one game it never actually got to sadly be a series, but is a game that was definitely deserving of one. We then have Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris, which was that weird, like, kind of not quite top-down, but third-person Lara Croft spin-off thing. You smash this out in 2 days, which is nice to see. Late Shift, followed by Only One Life is Strange. Lords of the Fallens, 100% is really cool. This is essentially just Dark Souls, but with cement in your boots. Not a particularly great game in my opinion, but it is nice to see the full 100%. I do remember the DLC for this being really, really annoying. We then have Mad Max, which is a really cool one to see. Obviously now unobtainable tragically because of the server shutdowns related to some of the challenges. We then have Two of the Mafias. The fact that you did the 1,000 miles on the PS3 is very impressive. That's a lot of falling through the map to achieve that. We then have Manuel Samuel, followed by Marvel's Midnight Suns, which is another impressive 100%. This is actually made by the people who developed XCOM. Haven't heard fantastic things about this one, but I'm also not a big superheroes guy, so It might have got better. I do know that every time a DLC launched, it did break the game. But I can see that you must have largely missed a lot of that because you did smash this out in just over 2 weeks. A huge collection of Mass Effects here with the original twice, Mass Effect 2 twice, and Mass Effect 3 twice, with Andromeda even. So this is clearly a favorite series for you, I assume. I know what we'll be making the thumbnail. And then you also have the Legendary Edition, which it was brought to my attention after the last Plat'n that has a lot of the insanity difficulty trophies for each game is tied into the Legendary Edition list there. So that is good to know. That would be why a lot of people probably then skip it. We then have Max Payne 3 with only one trophy missing. That's going to be the New York Minute trophy, where you have a minute to get another kill that then ups your timer by another minute, I think it is from memory, which is a very difficult trophy. So I do look forward to seeing if you do get round to this one again. The last time you played this was 2013, which is over a decade ago, which is a crazy thing to say. We then have Metal Gear 5 Ground Zeroes and the Phantom Pain both 100%ed, which is really cool to see. You don't often see Ground Zeroes actually, which is funny given that it is only a fraction of the size of Phantom Pain. Only one Metro in Metro Last Light's interesting to see. The DLC is what's missing here. I didn't realize there were 20 DLC trophies for this one. That's actually pretty interesting to me. I might have to look into that later as to what the additional trophies are. Because I do know, obviously, with Redux, you've got the sort of timed challenge maps, I guess you would call them, that are all fairly straightforward and easy to achieve. So I am interested, but I think there's only like 10 of those, 8 or 10. So I am interested to see what the other 20 trophies are that are missing here. We then have Miasma Chronicles, followed by Middle-earth Shadow of War. You're only missing, I assume, the Hunt is My Mistress trophy. Murdered Soul Suspect is a game I've platinumed twice and couldn't tell you anything about. Mutant Year Zero is an interesting one here. Your most recent game that you've platinumed is this here, which I'm going to butcher this name in a second. Nahelabjork's Dungeon Master. I'm sure I got that so thoroughly incorrect that it's not even funny. Natural Doctrine is next, followed by Nier Automata, followed by the Neo games, which is cool to see. I always love to see the 100% for the first one of these, because I know it is an absolute nightmare to actually do. There's a lot of replaying through the game on even harder difficulties than the last one sort of thing, which sounds like a miserable experience, but you did smash it out in 3 months, which is a massive achievement there, Kenneth. We then have Onichanbara Z2 Chaos, followed by Other Side, which is a game that I'm semi-interested in. That's one that certainly looks a little interesting to me. Oxenfree, Pathfinder Kingmaker is one that you're missing just a couple of trophies in, but it is a massively rare platinum at 0.39%. We then have Persona 5's 100%, followed by Phantom Doctrine, Phoenix Point. A really cool one here, actually, in Plague Inc. Evolved. I used to play this game on my PC at school so much. This was a very fun game to play that probably hits a bit different post the big epidemic that swept the world a couple of years ago. Predator Hunting Grounds is next. This is another one I absolutely enjoyed to do myself. This is another one I've thought about doing as a Project Platinum on the channel, so if you'd like to see that one, do let me know. I would need people to play it with, wink wink nudge nudge. Fantastic game. That 150 hours is not accurate. You could probably do it in about 50 hours using the modifiers and a couple of controllers and things like that. Praise next, fantastic game made by the people that did Dishonored. A couple tricky trophies, things like never killing anyone the entire game is actually pretty difficult, because if they die around you to other things, that counts as well, which is very annoying. But overall, fantastic game. Probably my favorite actual game developed by Arcane Studios, I would say. It's either that or Dishonored 1, of course. Rebel Galaxy is next, followed by the Red Dead games in Redemption 1, which on the PS3 has a lot of multiplayer trophies, so that is very impressive to see here. And of course, Red Dead Redemption 2. We then also have Red Faction Guerrilla, which you smashed out in 8 years for a whopping 0.75% completion rate, which is very cool. Remember Me, followed by Rhyme, which, as you all know, is a indie game near and dear to my heart. Rise of the Ronin came out this year, and to be perfectly honest with you, I actually don't know anything about this game. Is Rise of the Ronin good? Does anyone know? Do let me know in the comments if that is a game that is worth looking into at all. Rise of the Tomb Raider is obviously next. And then we get some interesting ones here, because I can see you are from France. So we've got Rugby Challenge 3 and 4. Obviously, rugby is a popular sport over there as well, as it is down under here. So it is cool to see. But Rugby League is an interesting one to also have, because I guess you've got Catalans and some of the clubs like that, but I wouldn't have thought Rugby League would be as popular over in France as it is, say, in Australia, New Zealand, or the United Kingdom, for example. We then have some Saints Rows here with 4 twice, and Get Out of Hell, and the third as well. Get Out of Hell probably being the weakest of these 3 games, and by probably I mean definitely. Not a particularly great game. We then have a very rare game here in Secret Ponchos, which is kind of like a multiplayer sort of shootout sort of game. I've heard okay things about it. Obviously, the big thing you get with this is it does have a ridiculously rare trophy list that's actually not too difficult to achieve. But you get some super impressive rare trophies out of it, which is always nice. We then have Shadow Tactics, which I think is the game made by the developers of Desperados. I think that's the game that I'm thinking of when I was saying that. So it is cool that you do have both of them there. We then also have the Shadowrun series here with Returns, Dragonfall, and Hong Kong. Only one Sherlock Holmes game in Crimes and Punishments, which I believe is the original Sherlock game from memory. I think its sequel is Devil's Daughter, and then there's obviously also the Frogware sort of reimaginings of the series that are very good, especially the Cthulhu sort of Lovecraftian one was pretty cool. We then have Sid Meier's Civilization 6, full 100%, nice to see here because it does have a whopping 98 trophies, most of which is DLC related. Double stack of Sleeping Dogs. This is another game that will be on Project Platinum at some point. I adore this. This is probably either this or Saints Row 2 are my favorite Grand Theft Auto sort of spin-offs. Absolutely fantastic games right here. Highly, highly recommend this one. Only one Sniper Elite with probably, in my opinion, the hardest Sniper Elite to do. Authentic difficulty in Sniper Elite 3 is very depressing when you've been on a mission for an hour and a half and you die to a tank that you can't even see, and it goes straight back to the start of the level. We then have quite a bit of South Park here with the Fractured Butthole and Stick of Truth twice, followed by Spec Ops The Line, fantastic third-person shooter. Highly recommend this one. Then we've got probably the most impressive completion on the entire list, besides Invisible Ink, which is Stellaris here. Obviously, one of the DLC trophies here is unobtainable. I assume it's the Dragons trophy, which was unobtainable at the start of the year. I assume that's also still unobtainable now, which is absolutely tragic to see, Kenneth. But the fact that you have the rest of the trophies here is super, super impressive. Congratulations, my friend. We then have Styx twice with Styx Masters of Shadows and Shards of Darkness. I've heard very good things about this series. This is another one I do plan on looking into at some point. Do let me know if you've played them yourselves and if you recommend them at all. Tales of the Borderlands is next. This is a Telltale game. I've not heard particularly great things about this one specifically. Followed by Teslagrad, The Bunker, which is kind of like a movie tie-in sort of horror game thing. It's an interesting combination. The Dark Eye Blackguards 2, one of the Dark Games pitches here with Man of Medan, which in my opinion is the most boring of the entire series. So the fact that you suffered through 4 playthroughs in 4 days is very impressive. The Deadly Tower of Monsters is next, followed by, this game's back, the Dungeons of Nihilbruk. The Amulet of Chaos. I'm sure I probably got the pronunciation even worse that time. We then have 3 stacks of Skyrim here with the PS4, the PS3, and the PS5 completion, which is really, really cool. You obviously know, everyone knows Skyrim at this point. It's another game I should probably do again at some point. I haven't played Skyrim since about 2013, 2014. So I'd be interested to see if I were to go back and play that game again, if I even remember it. And if it's as good as I remember too, because obviously I have pretty fond memories of Skyrim just in general. We then have The Last of Us here with the PS3's version. Servers are now shut on this, which makes the multiplayer unobtainable. We have Part 2 remastered. I forget that they remastered Part 2, which is honestly so pointless, it's not funny. And then The Last of Us remastered here as well. Actually, why are there so many more trophies in The Last of Us Part 2 remastered than there is The Last of Us Part 2? I'm going to have a look at this real quick, because I'm curious. This is research with symmetry real quick. Why are there so many more trophies? Rounded mode, yeah, that's fine. Oh. Oh, it's got its entire extra mode. I assume this looks like it's almost like a roguelike sort of thing. That looks disgusting. I don't want to do that at any point. We then have The Light and the Darkness. This is a free educational sort of game that sort of depicts some events that happened in World War II that aren't particularly great and are quite frankly quite horrific. Very touching and powerful game. This was definitely one that left me thinking at the end of it. I would even go as far as to recommend that one. It is free on the store, so I would say it is worth checking out. There's not a whole lot of gameplay in it, but that's kind of not the point of the game. It is designed to sort of educate you on a bunch of events that did happen and sort of the perspectives regarding it. We then have Lord of the Rings: The War in the North. This is a game I would love to do myself at some point. Outer Worlds. This is an Obsidian-based RPG. I've heard fairly good things about this one. I do own it and all the DLC, because of course I do. It is one that I would like to do at some point. Just 45 hours and 3 playthroughs is quite yucky to think about. The Procession of Cavalry I've never heard of, but I have heard of the Saboteur, which I think I talked about fairly in depth on the last episode of Plat'n. That essentially this was a open world RPG set in Paris, and there were some cool things like when you took over an area of the city, the game went from black and white to having color seep back into things, which is a really cool touch. It is set in World War II, which is also a very, very good setting. We had The Unfinished Swan, followed by 3 stacks of The Witcher, which is really cool to see. I always forget that there's a PS5 version of The Witcher now. Should look into seeing if I get a free version of that, given that I own The Witcher on PS4 half a dozen times. We then have Thief, which is a okay game. I don't think it's anything particularly special, and is definitely probably very disappointing to anyone that played the Thief games on the PC back in the day. We then have this War of Mine, The Little Ones, which is an interesting sort of base builder survival game. The Division and The Division 2 are really cool to see here. These are obviously Ubisoft's sort of answer to things like Destiny. We then have Tomb Raider twice. That means that you did the multiplayer in this twice, which means that you carried first aid kits twice for 12 hours twice. That's a lot of twices. Are you okay, Kenneth? We then have Torment: The Tides of Numenera, followed by Tropico 5, which is a game I adore. I love to see that you got the 100% in this, because it is actually pretty tricky, that 100%. The Platinum is not hard. It's not a 2 out of 10. It's harder than a 2 out of 10 for one mission in the campaign specifically. That one mission is actually very tough, especially if you don't know it's coming and haven't prepared for it. But the DLC is an actual like beast of its own and is actually pretty difficult. Trover Saves the Universe is next. This is made by the guys who did Rick and Morty, followed by a lot of Uncharted completions here, which is cool to see. Unfortunately, Uncharted 2 PS3 and Uncharted 3 PS3 are unobtainable for you now. You haven't done the multiplayer trophies with the servers now sadly shut, but you did do the 100% on the PS4 versions. You have done the 100% on Uncharted 4, which is nice to see, and you've also done Lost Legacy, which is really cool as well. Oh, not Lost Legacy, Legacy of Thieves. We then have Until Dawn, fantastic game. Valiant Hearts, another fantastic Ubisoft game that looks into World War II as a setting. Warframe Twice is really cool to see here, especially the PS4 version with its whopping 0.14% completion rate. Wasteland 2 is an interesting one here as well. Tactical turn-based sort of battle game that is a bit clunky, I will say that, but it is also very cool and a very fitting game for your account, Kenneth, given that you also have things like Baldur's Gate. I'll be interested to see if we do have XCOM here as well, potentially. We also have Wasteland 3, which is an even more beefy and bigger game. And I do know that it's got some savage missable trophies too, where you can accidentally kill a guy right at the start of the game or not let him out of a cell or something, and that'll lock you out of a ton of trophies 50 hours down the line. We then have all of the Watch Dogs at 100% except for Legion, where you are missing the hardest difficulty trophy. These are, I love Watch Dogs 1 and 2, I genuinely do. I don't like the DLC for Watch Dogs 1. Watch Dogs 2's DLCs are all just very forgettable, but the base game itself is incredible. And then Watch Dogs Legion exists. We Happy Few is next. In fact, I can see all the XCOMs there, so that answers my other question. But We Happy Few is next, which I remember this game having so much hype when it was coming out, and then it just completely vanished off the face of the earth. Weird West is a really interesting one here. This is a sort of top-down game set in the Wild West. You play as several protagonists that all have an intertwining story. It's interesting. I don't know if I like Weird West. It is a very 5 out of 10 game just in terms of quality, but I love a lot of what it was trying to do. So it's a game I'm very hit or miss on. Wet is an interesting shooter game. Wulong Dynasty is another interesting one here. This is made by the guys that did Neo. So it is fitting that you have smashed out the full 100% here. I'm very impressed to see that you have the full 100% in the XCOM series, because some of these trophies here, especially in Enemy Unknowns 100% and XCOM 2, are actually very, very difficult to do. Especially if you don't do the exploit in XCOM 2, so that is fantastic to see. And we round out this list with the Yakuza 4. So Kenneth, thank you so much for letting me look at your account. This is another heavyweight account for Plat'n Season 3. All of the accounts so far this season have been phenomenal, in all honesty. They've all been genuinely fantastic. So thank you so much for adding to that tally. But guys, I'll see you next week. I miss you already. Goodbye.